Barron Trump, the youngest son of the president, had just wrapped up his classes for the day. Unlike his famous father, Barron preferred a quieter life, often finding solace in the world of sports. Tall for his age, he had taken an interest in basketball and soccer, but baseball was a recent curiosity sparked by a documentary on the legendary Babe Ruth. One Saturday, Barron found himself at Nationals Park, where his father had arranged a private batting session as a surprise. The vast, empty stadium echoed the sharp crack of a bat striking a ball as the young Trump swung at a pitching machine's steady stream of fastballs. He was still learning, his stance a bit clumsy, but he was determined to improve. As he lined up for another swing, the echo of footsteps grew louder behind him. Turning, Barron found himself face to face with Jason, the Flash Reynolds, one of the hottest names in Major League Baseball. Known for his lightning-fast base running and powerful home runs, Reynolds had just wrapped up a record-breaking season, earning him a reputation as one of the sport's cockiest stars. "Whoa, what's the president's kid doing here?" Reynolds smirked, leaning against the cage. "Trying to be the next Derek Jeter? Good luck with that, kid." Barron straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of Reynolds' condescending stare. He had been teased before, but this felt different. This wasn't just another kid at school trying to get under his skin, this was a pro, someone he admired, even if begrudgingly. "Just practicing," Barron replied, keeping his voice steady, refusing to let the taunt get to him. "Figured I'd try something new." Reynolds chuckled, stepping into the cage beside him. "All right, let's see what you've got. Show me your best swing." Barron took a deep breath, tightened his grip, and swung as the next pitch zipped past him. The bat missed by a mile, slicing through empty air. He could feel his cheeks flush under Reynolds' smug gaze. "Wow," Reynolds laughed, shaking his head. "You've got the coordination of a baby giraffe. You sure you don't want to stick to, I don't know, golf or something? Heard your dad's pretty good at that." Barron's jaw tightened. He felt the familiar sting of humiliation, the kind that made him want to shrink away. But instead, he took a deep breath and reset his stance. Again, he muttered to himself, eyes locked on the machine. The next pitch came, a bit slower this time, and Barron swung with every ounce of focus he could muster. This time, the bat connected, sending the ball sailing over the pitcher's mound. It wasn't a home run, but it was solid contact, and the crack echoed through the empty stadium. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, the smug grin momentarily slipping. "Not bad, kid," he said, a hint of surprise in his voice. "But you've got a long way to go if you want to keep up with the pros." Barron met his eyes, his confidence returning. "I'll get there," he said firmly. "You'll see." Reynolds snorted, tossing his own bat over his shoulder. "We'll see, Trump. We'll see." As the baseball star walked away, Barron watched him disappear down the tunnel, the echo of his taunting laugh still ringing in his ears. Barron clenched his fists, a spark igniting in his chest. If there was one thing he had learned from his father, it was to never back down from a challenge. That night, Barron sat at his desk, staring at the baseball resting beside his laptop. The echoes of Reynolds' mocking tone replayed in his mind, each word a fresh sting to his pride. He had faced public scrutiny before, but something about this encounter struck a different nerve. It wasn't just about being the president's son this time, it was about proving himself on his own terms. Determined to turn this moment of humiliation into a stepping stone, Barron dove headfirst into researching baseball techniques. He pulled up videos of legendary hitters Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr., and modern stars like Mike Trout. He watched slow-motion clips of perfect swings, noting the stance, the grip, the follow-through. The science of the sport fascinated him, the precise mechanics that transformed a simple swing into a powerful home run. Over the next few weeks, Barron transformed his father's private gym into his own baseball training ground. He replaced the usual weights and treadmills with a professional pitching machine and a portable batting net. He even had a batting tee set up in the corner for those late-night practice sessions when the White House halls were silent. Barron's routine became relentless. Early morning batting drills, afternoon weight training to build his swing power, and hours spent watching game footage. Secret Service agents, accustomed to protecting a young man who usually stuck to basketball, found themselves adjusting to the constant crack of baseballs slamming into the net. One morning, as Barron swung at another perfectly placed fastball, one of his guards, a former high school baseball coach named Agent Collins, stepped closer, watching him with a critical eye. "Nice swing, kid," Collins said, leaning against the wall. "But you're dropping your back shoulder too much. You're losing power." Barron stopped, resting the bat on his shoulder as he caught his breath. "What do you mean?" Collins grabbed a nearby bat, moving to stand beside him. Here, let me show you. It's all about balance and core strength. You can't just rely on your height. You've got to drive through the ball. He demonstrated a textbook-perfect swing, his movements fluid and powerful. The ball cracked off the bat, ricocheting off the far wall of the gym with a sharp echo. Barron's eyes lit up. Like that? Exactly, Collins replied, handing the bat back. You've got the reach, Barron. Use it. Keep that shoulder level, engage your core, and explode through the ball. You'll see the difference. Over the next few weeks, Collins became Barron's unofficial coach, fine-tuning his technique and pushing him to his limits. The young Trump's swings grew more confident, his hits harder and more precise. He started to feel the rhythm of the game, the natural flow that separated amateurs from pros. One afternoon, as Barron smashed ball after ball into the net, Collins leaned against the wall, a proud smile creeping onto his face. You're getting there, kid, he said, crossing his arms. Keep this up and you might just surprise some people. Barron grinned, sweat dripping down his forehead. That's the plan. As the weeks passed, Barron's confidence grew. He found himself daydreaming about that day at Nationals Park, replaying Reynolds' taunts in his mind. Instead of feeling small, he felt a growing hunger to prove himself, to show that he was more than just the president's kid. Then, one Friday evening, as Barron wrapped up his training, he received a text message that sent a jolt of adrenaline through his veins. Hey Trump, heard you've been putting in some work. How about a real challenge? Nationals Park, next Saturday. Let's see if you've got what it takes. Jr. Barron stared at the message, his heart pounding. This was it, the rematch he had been hoping for. The chance to show Jason Reynolds and the world that he was not someone to be underestimated. He gripped his bat tightly, a determined smile spreading across his face. Challenge accepted. The morning of the rematch arrived faster than Barron expected. Nationals Park loomed in the distance as the presidential motorcade cut through the early DC traffic, its dark SUVs reflecting the golden rays of dawn. Barron sat in the back seat, tapping his fingers against his thigh, the weight of the upcoming showdown pressing down on him. He glanced down at his baseball glove, the leather worn from countless hours of practice, and took a deep breath. As the car pulled into the stadium's private entrance, Barron caught a glimpse of the massive field, its pristine green grass stretching out like an open challenge. He stepped out, the morning air cool against his skin, carrying the faint, nostalgic scent of freshly cut grass. The stadium felt different today, not just a place for practice, but an arena for proving himself. Jason Reynolds was already there, leaning casually against the batting cage, chatting with a few of his teammates. He spotted Barron and straightened, a cocky grin spreading across his face. Well, look who decided to show up, Reynolds called, tossing a baseball into the air and catching it with a practiced flick of his wrist. Thought you might chicken out. Barron forced a confident smile, tightening his grip on his bat. You'll see, Reynolds. I'm not the same kid you saw last time. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. All right then, let's see what you've got. They stepped into the cage, the familiar metallic clang of the gate closing behind them echoing in the empty stadium. The air grew tense as a few members of the Nationals coaching staff gathered around, curious to see the spectacle. Barron could feel their eyes on him, skeptical, judging, waiting for the president's son to fumble. Reynolds took the first turn, effortlessly smashing ball after ball into the outfield. His swings were powerful and precise, each hit sending the ball rocketing into the distance with a satisfying crack. He stepped back, tossing his bat to the side as if to say, "Top that." Barron stepped up to the plate, his heart racing. He tightened his grip on the bat, remembered Collins' advice, and adjusted his stance. The pitching machine whirred to life, the first ball hurtling toward him. He swung, and the ball connected with a sharp, solid crack, soaring over the pitcher's mound and bouncing off the far wall. Reynolds' grin faltered slightly, the confidence in his eyes dimming just a bit. Barron's second swing was even better, the ball flying deep into the outfield, bouncing off the warning track. He felt the rhythm now, his body moving on instinct, the months of relentless practice paying off. The third pitch came, and Barron's bat cut through the air with a powerful, precise swing. The ball shot upward, arcing high over center field, disappearing into the stadium's upper deck. For a brief, glorious moment, the entire stadium seemed to hold its breath. A stunned silence hung in the air as the sound of the ball striking the empty seats echoed back to them. Reynolds' jaw tightened, his arms crossed over his chest, clearly not expecting this kind of performance. Barron stepped back, breathing heavily but grinning, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He met Reynolds' gaze, his blue eyes sharp with defiance. "Not bad for a baby giraffe, huh?" Barron said, echoing the taunt Reynolds had thrown at him weeks ago. Reynolds forced a chuckle, masking his surprise. "All right, Trump. You've got some power. I'll give you that. But hitting in a cage is one thing. Let's see you handle the real thing, live pitching." Barron's smile never wavered. "Bring it on." As the pitching coach stepped onto the mound, baseball in hand, Barron tightened his batting gloves, his mind clear and focused. This was the moment he had trained for, the real test of his grit and determination. As the first live pitch came hurtling toward him, Barron's eyes locked onto the ball, his muscles tensed, and his bat swung forward with every ounce of strength and precision he had developed over months of practice. The crack of the bat echoed through the stadium, louder and more satisfying than any sound Barron had ever heard. The ball soared high into the morning sky, its white surface a stark contrast against the deep blue. For a split second, everything else faded, the stadium, the distant chatter of the players, even the steady hum of the city outside, all drowned out by the sweet, satisfying crack of bat meeting ball. As the ball cleared the outfield wall and bounced into the empty bleachers, a hush fell over the small crowd of onlookers. Barron stepped back, adjusting his batting gloves with a subtle confidence that hadn't been there just a few weeks ago. He caught Reynolds' eyes, the pro's expression a mix of disbelief and forced indifference. "Not bad," Reynolds muttered, trying to mask his surprise as he leaned against the cage. "Beginner's luck, maybe." Barron suppressed a grin, his heart still racing. "Or maybe it's just practice," he shot back, stepping back into the batter's box. The pitcher wound up again, his arm whipping forward as the ball shot toward the plate with the speed of a bullet. Barron swung, the crack echoing through the empty stands as the ball screamed down the right field line, hitting the foul pole with a loud clang. Now, even the national staff on the sidelines exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. The kid was good, better than they had expected, and clearly not just coasting on his last name. Reynolds, his jaw tightening, stepped forward. "All right, kid. You've proven you can hit off a machine and a pitching coach. But let's see how you do against a real pitcher." He motioned to one of the younger bullpen guys who had been leaning against the wall, watching with a smirk. The young pitcher, probably in his early 20s, nodded, grabbing his glove and jogging to the mound. He adjusted his cap, a confident grin on his face. Barron recognized the look, the same look Reynolds had given him during their first encounter. The first pitch came blazing in, a fastball that cut through the air like a missile. Barron, his senses sharpened by countless hours of practice, reacted instinctively. He pivoted, his body moving in perfect sync, and the bat connected with a deafening crack, the ball rocketing into deep left center field, slamming into the bleachers with a satisfying thud. Reynolds' confident smirk wavered, his arms uncrossing as he took a step forward, clearly not expecting the president's son to handle live pitching so effortlessly. The young pitcher shook his head, clearly rattled, and wound up again. This time he tried a curveball, hoping to throw Barron off balance. But Barron had seen enough late-night footage to recognize the slight change in grip and arm motion. He adjusted mid-swing, sending the ball screaming down the left field line, bouncing off the warning track before rolling to the outfield wall. A low whistle came from one of the older coaches. "Kid's got some pop," he muttered, leaning in closer. Reynolds clenched his jaw, his cool demeanor cracking just a bit. He grabbed a bat from the nearby rack, stepping up beside Barron. "All right, Trump. Let's make this interesting. How about a little competition? 5 pitches each. Most home runs wins." Barron wiped the sweat from his brow, meeting Reynolds' challenging stare. "You're on." They took turns, each pitch crackling through the air as the two competitors swung for the fences. Reynolds, a seasoned pro, hit 3 out of 5 over the wall, each one a reminder of his status as one of the league's elite. Barron stepped up for his turn, his heart pounding, every nerve in his body tuned to the challenge. The first pitch came fast and low, but Barron adjusted, his bat slicing through the zone, sending the ball arcing high into left field, clearing the wall by a comfortable margin. The second pitch, a high fastball, met the sweet spot of his bat, the ball launching like a missile into the upper deck. The third, a curveball, twisted through the air, but Barron was ready, his sharp eyes picking up the spin as he crushed it to deep center. As the final pitch left the pitcher's hand, Barron dug in, his body coiled like a spring. He swung, the bat connecting with a sharp, echoing crack, and the ball sailed into the deepest part of the park, slamming into the back wall with a loud, satisfying thunk. Silence fell over the field. Reynolds, his bat still in his hand, stared at the spot where the ball had disappeared, his face a mask of frustration and reluctant respect. Barron dropped his bat, his chest heaving, and met Reynolds' gaze. Guess I'm not such a baby giraffe anymore. For a moment, the two just stared at each other, the air thick with the unspoken acknowledgement of a hard-earned respect. Then, to Barron's surprise, Reynolds chuckled, shaking his head. "All right, Trump," he said, clapping Barron on the shoulder. "Maybe I underestimated you." Barron grinned, feeling a surge of pride. "Maybe you did." As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the diamond, Barron and Reynolds leaned against the dugout railing, catching their breath. The stadium around them, though empty, felt alive with the energy of their impromptu showdown. For a moment, Barron allowed himself to simply feel the moment, the rush of adrenaline, the taste of victory, the satisfaction of proving himself against one of the best. Reynolds, still shaking his head in disbelief, took a long sip from his water bottle before speaking. "You know, Trump, you really surprised me out there." Barron leaned back, still riding the high of his performance. "Guess that makes two of us." Reynolds chuckled, his earlier arrogance replaced by a begrudging respect. "I've faced rookies, veterans, and everything in between, but I didn't expect this kind of fight from you." He paused, his expression turning serious. "But you've got something a lot of guys don't, that hunger to prove everyone wrong." Barron felt his pulse slow, the weight of those words sinking in. It was true, he had pushed himself not just to impress, but to break free from the shadow of his last name, to earn respect on his own terms. Reynolds continued, his voice softer, more reflective. "You remind me of me when I first broke into the league. Everyone counted me out, said I was too short, too scrawny, didn't have the arm for it. But I pushed just like you." Barron glanced at him, surprised by the sudden shift in tone. "I didn't know that." Reynolds smiled, a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. "Yeah, most people only see the highlight reels and the big contracts. They don't see the hours in the cage, the countless failures, the people telling you you're not good enough. But that's what separates the greats from the rest, the ones who take the hits and keep swinging." Barron felt a warmth spread through his chest, the words hitting him harder than any pitch. For the first time, he saw Reynolds not just as a rival, but as a fellow fighter, someone who had walked the same lonely path of proving himself against the odds. After a long pause, Reynolds reached out his hand. "Respect, Trump. You've got heart. Keep grinding, and who knows? Maybe one day you'll be the one standing in my cleats." Barron hesitated for a second, then gripped the outstretched hand firmly. "I'll hold you to that," he said, his blue eyes meeting Reynolds with a newfound confidence. As they parted ways, Barron felt a sense of pride and relief. He had come to Nationals Park seeking redemption, and he had found something even more valuable, respect. He had proven, not just to Reynolds but to himself, that he was more than just a name, more than just the president's son. Walking back through the tunnel, his footsteps echoing against the cool concrete walls, Barron replayed the day's events in his mind. He had faced humiliation, pushed past his limits, and emerged stronger for it. The lessons he had learned would stay with him long after the cheers of the stadium had faded. As he stepped into the cool, shaded interior of the waiting SUV, Barron glanced down at his battered, sweat-stained batting gloves. He had found his own voice today, carved out his own place in the world of hard hits and long shots. As the car pulled away from the stadium, Barron leaned back, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. This was just the beginning.